We are back, and we've got all kinds of people on here today. We have Neil Oliver, who is the director for Miss Evers Boys. He is also one of New Bern Civic Theater's board members. We have Denadre Bell and Keith Davis. You guys excited?
So excited.
I got to watch the rehearsals last night, and it really is a roller coaster of just wow.
Yeah.
That's all I can say is wow. And I'm not going to give a whole bunch away, but while I'm going through these emotions, the one scene I had to choke back my emotions. Very powerful stuff. So talk to us a little bit about Miss Evers Boys.
So it's the story. It follows 4 men through about 40 years, and they've contracted syphilis, and they are under the impression that the United States government has sent help for them to get cured, but the story kind of shows a little bit otherwise. So it's that emotional roller coaster between them, you know, contracting it and just their life. And you kind of see how it adapts. They adapt with it and the different things like that. So it's an emotional roller coaster, definitely.
And Keith, had you heard of this story before the auditions?
Yes, I had heard of the story, but not really had delved into the history of that particular moment and that particular part of history. As deep as I have during this particular exploration of the character and of the play. And so that was very refreshing, and that's what I was looking forward to, actually. I think, you know, when we look at African American history specifically, again, we tend to just focus, you know, right in on either, like you said, slavery, or we go right into, like, you know, the civil rights movement. Forgetting that there's still that whole gap of history that's going on right here in the 30s during the Great Depression, you know, and that kind of thing, and seeing what is really going on at that particular moment. So I think sometimes we forget about the things in the middle. And here's a poignant, important, prolific story in the middle of American history / African American history that is often not told or studied in classrooms, you know, in history. And so here's a chance to really pick it up and look at it introspectively.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because our title sponsor are the CRNAs of Carolina Health System, and this is actually one of the case studies that they researched during their schooling. This is one of the stories that they go through for ethics. What was it like for you? I mean, directing this?
It's an interesting piece to direct. It's always more challenging when you're dealing with something that is from history, and even more so when it's recent history, and does reflect to some degree what's going on in our own time. So to be honest about what we're trying to portray, and this is a fictional story based in and based on real events. Miss Evers is based on Laurie Rivers is the name of the nurse who was originally part of the story, but it's this fictional representation of this very important and really understudied portion of American history, because it's not something that we could ever be proud of. The only thing we can be proud of is that we stopped it.
And this went on into the 70s. I do want to point that out, that this continued on into the 70s, which Sierra DiNapoli was actually the one who told me to read this script last year. And while I was waiting for the script, that's when I did all the research. And I was texting her throughout the night saying, "Are you kidding me? Are you kidding? Did this really happen?" And with such a serious subject matter, one of the things that I found absolutely incredible last night with the performances was that there was lightheartedness, there was so much humanity, there was so much character and friendship intertwined in such a tragic story that it felt like I was part of this group of men and in watching their lives unfold. Talk to me about how you developed your character to bring that out.
Well, first of all, being under the direction of an awesome director.
Yes.
Let's take a moment.
But I think one of the things in the beginning was trying to make sure that we all understood, these are real stories of real people. So the last thing we want to do is make it feel like it's this big soap opera that's completely fake, and but we wanted to make sure that we bring the humanity out of each of the characters. And so for my character in particular, Willie, he represented and still represents so many young people who are born into societies who have this drive and determination to want more. And because of their specific circumstances, they become complacent in where they are. And so I think with me just comparing it to my own story, understanding, that as a young person, there are a whole lot of things to factor in with the dreams that I want, and to kind of tell the story of what would happen if I didn't allow, my drive or my determination to push me outside of the things that people tell me. So in channeling that, that's how I kind of channeled Willie, and sharing that story of what would happen, if I allowed, my circumstances, or what would happen if I allowed different things that came my way to, stop me from really getting what I wanted.
Right.
And I think channeling and echoing your sentiments, Neil Oliver is a great director, first of all.
Yes.
And I would say that as far as going into our process, I think what he stressed too was that we needed to stay true to the history and the time and the setting. There were, things that were said and done within our rehearsal process to really keep us there in that moment, understanding that we're not modernizing this story in any kind of way. We're not trying to, like he said, put our own spin on it, but we're trying to stay true to really what the playwright has put in place, and into the commit all the way to the time and the history of what is going on. I also think that what Neil did that is so spectacular is that he has the gift of concentrating on the complexities of the objectives of the actor and of the characters. And he drilled that, in us, throughout the whole process. We were able to dialogue really and have honest, truthful dialogue about all of the complexities of this script. All of the issues, all of the themes, all of the topics. And I think that's what people will see when they come, is like you witnessed last night, you'll see those layers of complexity that comes between each and every person. And coming from my character, who is Ben Washington, who is really like the eldest of the men, and the elder, I like to call, of the village, so to speak. For me, this story means a lot, because playing Ben, I feel like, as I'm an educator as well, I am an elder, even though I don't consider myself to be necessarily old in age. I'm an elder for my village, for my students, for my community. And so, we see Ben, I think, grapple with Willie's, newer outlooks and more progressive outlooks, because his experience has been different. He doesn't have all of the education. He doesn't have all of the things and has not been exposed necessarily to some of the things that some of the other men have.
Right.
And so I was able to tap into, I think, my inner elder through this character, and it's sharpened my commitment, I think, through this process, to want to serve my community in a way and make sure that I'm being that elder in the village of this community here in New Bern and everywhere I go.
Right. And, this has as far as directing, it has the potential to go down a dark place and stay there. And I think that's what I really appreciated about last night's performances, is it didn't stay stagnant. It didn't focus on that. There were these individual struggles and stories that by the end, you really know what each person's battle was. And it wasn't always in medical terms. So how did you get the cast to kind of dive into that as well?
We spent a
Whips. Bribing with food?
We spent probably the first 4 weeks at the table.
Yes.
And never set foot on the stage, never stood up from the table, and talked a lot about who each of these characters were. They have their archetypes for these 4 guys. You've got Ben, who is the elder. We have Caleb, who is the more enlightened individual. You have Hodman, who really represents the history of where they're coming from. He's the folk healer and uses those remedies. He's really tied back into that. And then Willie, who represents the young black community at that time, which really, he represents the black diaspora, the great movement north,
Right.
because that's what he talks about the whole time.
Going north.
And then Miss Evers is an educated black woman during the Depression, which would have been so unique and so miraculous to all of these guys. So to make them understand who they are in that time period and that time frame, first and foremost, and then wrap the story around them, because that's how life exists. You know, we are who we are, and then we react to those external things that come at us. So we spent a lot of time getting into that mode and understanding where we wanted to go with each scene, where the total arc of the story was, and I think had a really good time exploring. It's a lot of fun to have the opportunity to delve into that as a director and to watch people develop those on the other side. I love both sides of the coin as an actor and a director, but it's so much fun to watch people fall into these wonderful relationships. There's a scene at the end of Act 1 where they're all in a car riding to go to a Jilly contest, and it is probably my favorite scene. At this point, it changes daily. Last night, it was my favorite scene in the show because there's so much life and there's so much fun, and there's still the undertone of the sadness of everything that's going on, because we never get in life that purity of emotion where we're just plain happy or we're just plain sad. It's always this complex layering, and they have done such a wonderful job of bringing that out in these characters. It's been a lot of fun.
Well, I'm really excited for you guys to open this weekend. It runs for 2 weekends, Miss Evers Voice. You can go to newberncivictheater.org and get information on how you can get your tickets. And they're available by calling 633-0567, or you can stop by the box office Tuesday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Again, we want to give a special thank you to the CRNAs of Carolina Health System for once again sponsoring our Black History Month. Thank you so much, and it was wonderful last night. Just wonderful performances.
Good.
Looking forward to this weekend.
It's gonna be fun.